Deciding which credit card or loan is right for you is like trying to choose where you want to eat for dinner. Except when you finally get to the restaurant, the menu's riddled with jargon that no average foodie could understand. So at Credit Karma, we keep things simple. We show you personalized recommendations that align with your money goals and help you turn the confusing fine print into terms you can actually understand. And as a cherry on top, we provide a detailed overview for a new card or loan before you apply. That way, we can help you make decisions faster and with more confidence. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
Max Bankman, I'm the new doctor.
Welcome aboard the Odyssey.
ABC Thursdays.
This ship is heaven. We're tending to our passengers' dreams. I'm in.
From 911 executive producer Ryan Murphy comes a splashy new drama on a luxury cruise ship with Joshua Jackson and Don Johnson.
It's your job to keep everyone alive.
She's in VFib. 1, 2, 3. Clear.
I have a pulse.
You're gonna be okay.
Dr. Odyssey. Thursdays, 9/8 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. With Cybersecurity Awareness Month winding down, LifeLock wants to remind you to update your software. These updates will patch up security issues that identity thieves can exploit to gain access to your personal info. For comprehensive identity theft protection, there's LifeLock. LifeLock alerts you to more uses of your personal info and fixes issues that arise. Protect your identity today with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast.
Before we jump in, this program contains material that may be unsuitable for some listeners. The content includes descriptions of violence, discussions about sex, and mental illness. We strongly recommend that listeners who are sensitive to these topics or are under 18 years of age refrain from listening. By continuing to listen, you acknowledge and accept this. All right, let's get started. Elliot walks around the hallway at school, a red brick building. He's almost 13 years old. He doesn't stand out much, doesn't say much, and mostly keeps to himself. Here's Brian Whitney, who wrote the book The Supreme Gentleman Killer, which is all about Elliot Rodger.
So girls would ignore him, but they weren't really actively teasing him. And then at this point, a group of girls, in his words, started actually teasing him.
Previously, no one paid attention to him, especially not, as he perceives it, the girls.
He just felt that they took pleasure from his suffering, that they teased him on purpose.
School ends, and at this time in his life, he only does one thing: play World of Warcraft.
Beyond the gates of mighty kingdoms lies a vast, unexplored world.
So Elliot comes home, sits at the computer, and plays.
A world of mystery.
He sits there in his room playing, and now something happens within him. He can't let go of what happened at school during the day.
That they just, took joy out of his unhappiness and that he wanted them and he couldn't have them.
And here it is, in front of the computer in his room, that he begins to feel the sensation of hating people, and women, or girls especially.
Not because of the teasing necessarily, but that was the impetus for when he decided they were his enemy.
And now, as he starts spending more and more time online, traces of him can be found afterwards. He starts writing in the chat in World of Warcraft, and he also begins to find various other online forums. He writes about women, expressing himself in derogatory ways.
How they're all just interested in sex and they or money, and they don't care about the real person. And also a lot of self-aggrandizing stuff starts at this point, where this is also a thread where he's always well, I'm so good looking and I'm intelligent. And
you are listening to The Incel Killer, a story in 5 chapters about how a young man could develop such a hatred towards people in general, and women in particular, that he decides to kill them all. My name is Jonathan Rollins. And if you like this series, don't forget to follow us so you can see as soon as we drop a new episode. But now let's begin. This is Chapter 2, Stuck in the Void. To escape these thoughts of being bullied, feeling lonely, and the sensation that no one wants to be with him, he plays more and more World of Warcraft.
So he's just more and more drawn into this dream world, this fake world. It's a beautiful game. It's very well designed. And it's made for a kid like Elliot. You know, it's made for a kid like Elliot that doesn't have anything going on. So
he goes to school, comes home, and plays at home. His mother has now set up the internet, so he doesn't need to go to the internet cafe as often anymore. At this time, for the first and only time, he has a small group of people he hangs out with. It's 3 friends who also play World of Warcraft. But over time, these friends stop reaching out to Elliot.
So he's playing with them online, and he realizes they're all like hanging out in the same room, you know, and they didn't ask him to come by. So that's another thing where he's like, you know, his real life friends are letting him down.
He withdraws more and more, disappointed in his friends, who obviously don't want to be with him, and plays more and more World of Warcraft.
And he was good too, and that's the other thing. Like it's a very competitive game. Like, so he was good at the game. He's feeling good about himself about something.
And it's in this, as so many times before, and as so many times later, that Elliot changes his strategy to get attention.
This is another thing that he's constantly making a plan. You know, the plan never works, you know, like never, ever, ever work.
As before with relationships, trying to be cool, playing World of Warcraft, bleaching his hair, starting to skateboard, these have all been strategies to get closer to others, especially to get closer to those he considered cool.
But he never just like gets up in the morning and he's just like, I'm just going to see what the day brings. Like, he's like, okay, that didn't work, so like, now I'm going to do this.
But this strategy takes an unexpected turn.
Yeah, at this point, he decided that he was just being ignored and he wasn't getting any of the positive feedback that he wanted. So he just decided to act weird instead, that it just act strange.
He thinks, if I just act weird, do strange things, make noises, talk loudly in the classroom, run around the schoolyard, then at least they will see me, notice me.
That at least now when people noticed him, they would notice him on his own terms. Like, he just didn't want to be invisible anymore. Like, his main thing was like at least people will notice me, at least people will pay attention to me, as opposed to like not even looking at me at all.
This is how Elliot himself describes it, that he makes a decision to do these things.
So it's hard to tell like how much he was actually deciding to act strange, and maybe he was just strange. But in his mind, at least, he was leaning into his weird side. He kind of wanted to be irritating, you know, to the popular kids.
But at school, Elliot is still reserved.
He's not comfortable in social situations, still very shy in public, had very difficulty doing the types of things other kids could do.
His new behavior makes it worse for him at school. Instead of being invisible, Elliot is now strange and incredibly unpopular. He is angry, unhappy, and depressed. He tries not to care about what others think, thinking that everyone is just an idiot anyway.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. With Cybersecurity Awareness Month winding down, LifeLock wants to remind you to update your software. These updates will patch up security issues that identity thieves can exploit to gain access to your personal info. For comprehensive identity theft protection, there's LifeLock. LifeLock alerts you to more uses of your personal info and fixes issues that arise. Protect your identity today with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast.
Oh, it's such a clutch off-season pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
Shop Blinds.com right now and get up to 45% off select styles. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Streaming only on Peacock.
Being with Finch felt like I was in some fairy tale.
She's like, I write for Grey's Anatomy. I was like, what?
Her writing was so highly regarded because Finch had been through so much.
A Hollywood writer's life.
When you love somebody, you'll ignore red flags so they're hitting you in the head.
Filled with fiction.
She would do whatever it takes to get ahead. she saw her like a TV series.
I don't know who my wife is.
Anatomy of Lies, streaming October 15th, only on Peacock.
It was all a lie.
It's 2004. Elliot is 13 years old, and a few things still make him happy. Elliot's father and Sumaya, his new wife, have a baby. Elliot becomes a big brother, and he's been looking forward to it. His parents continue to try to get help with Elliot and his social problems, but they have no idea what's really going on in Elliot's head. The hatred towards the cool kids, the popular ones, towards girls, towards boys. Around this time, he's diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified.
But this is one of a group of disorders characterized by delays in the development of socialization and communication skills. So, I mean, it's basically like it's a catch-all sort of like diagnosis for a kid who's shy in public, like just young for his age, basically. Like,
it is simply a diagnosis used to describe individuals who do not fit into any of the more specific diagnoses.
Even buying something in a store, he needed help with his parents. He was that kind of kid where, like most other kids, they might even have a job babysitting or something at his age, or doing maybe mowing lawns working in their dad's store. I mean, he's still the kind of kid where he's like, Dad, can you buy this for me?
People have called your son evil. How would you describe Elliot?
Elliot was far from evil.
Here's Elliot's father again.
Something happened to him, and then I think he became very mentally ill. What I don't get is we didn't see this coming at all. None of us.
His dad still doesn't really think that there's anything particularly wrong with him as opposed to his mom. And I think I said this before, but so Asperger's in particular, Asperger's syndrome is on the autism spectrum, and that he really does have a lot of things that kind of play into that.
Elliot struggled socially, both in and outside of school, but particularly with other children his age. He has difficulty reading social cues.
So his mother is continually kind of pushing for more help for him. And his father is kind of continually like playing off, like he's worried. His father doesn't think everything's cool, but he also doesn't really think there's anything seriously wrong with Elliot.
But Elliot is afraid of others. He's afraid of both boys and girls. Here's Elliot's father again.
He felt he had an inability to get along with them. And this is when we realized that he had a real fear of other human beings, of other kids his age.
At the end of the spring semester in 8th grade, 2004, Elliot falls in love with a girl. He feels that in a fair world, if you love someone, they might soon love you back, as long as you treat them well. And that's what Elliot really tries to do. But as he perceives it, she teases and rejects him.
When he says a girl that I'm in love with starts teasing him, and it's hard to really know like what's really going on here, right? It's like, if you think about like what it might be like to have a 13-year-old Elliot Rodger like in love with you, he probably wasn't presenting like particularly like normally to the girl who teased him, so.
No, maybe it's not very clear to this girl that Elliot is in love with her. But however it is, this rejection only makes Elliot's inner hatred towards girls grow and grow, and he plays more and more World of Warcraft to escape.
His hopes are dashed. Why does this always happen to him? Why doesn't this woman love him? And he just decided once again that he just wasn't going to try. He was just going to hide and not put himself out there anymore. And this is a 13-year-old kid,
And this feeling of hopelessness grows and grows within him.
He just doesn't even know how to function in society around people, especially girls, and that's all he wants. Like, he doesn't have any sense of self.
Now Elliot is 13 years old. He will later describe that at this point, when this happens, it's like he already feels that his life is over.
A lot of 13-year-olds feel like that to an extent, but they feel like that for a few days and they bounce back. Like this is permanent. It's a permanent situation for him at this point.
Summer is approaching, and high school is about to start for Elliot. He feels terrified. He hates school, and he doesn't think it will get much better now. He feels that with each passing year, he's expected to fit in more, and each year, he feels that he never lives up to what society, school, or parents think he should be. He can't quite understand why. He believes he's intelligent, interesting, and not at all boring, but still, nothing works. He plays more and more World of Warcraft during the summer and tries to avoid all thoughts of how high school will be.
He was always obsessive about this one issue.
Obsessive about which
About
is
not
finding
getting a
your
girlfriend.
Here's Elliot's father again.
But here's the thing. According to this journal and according to his acts, he was already planning heinous things in response to this emotional thing in his head that none of us could really see.
On the outside, Elliot may still just be a socially awkward and lonely boy. But inside, a hatred grows and grows. A hatred that will eventually lead to something terrible. But for now, he worries most about people being mean to him and ignoring him. But as school approaches, he's especially terrified of one thing, that there are expectations for him to kiss a girl, or even worse, have sex with a girl. He is terrified.
In his mind, he's like, I'm so miserable being around girls that if I could not be around girls at all, I mean, again, massive thinking errors, man, you know, like just massive thinking errors. So if I can't have a girl, I'll just make sure I'm never around them anymore. So therefore I won't think about them anymore. And which makes no sense, of course.
To quell his fear, he persuades his parents to let him start at an all-boys school, a Catholic school, and it's a prestigious school, a good school, which his parents think is great.
So like it was kind of a win-win for him because he's like, my parents will be happy. They won't know that I'm just doing this because like I don't want to be around girls anymore. He gets into this school and thinks his problems are potentially solved.
It's the last day of school. At the graduation ceremony for 8th graders who are now moving on, Elliot and the rest of the students are to go up on stage and announce which school they will be attending. There are many people in the audience. His parents, Samaya, his sister and brother. It's now Elliot's turn to go up on stage. He starts shaking, his heart pounding hard, and he says that his name is Elliot and he'll be starting at Crespi High School. His family's proud, but not Elliot. He feels it was terrible, that he embarrassed himself because he was so nervous, and he is a disappointment to them. School ends, and Elliot looks forward to a summer where he can play World of Warcraft and keep to himself, not meet anyone. June turns into July, and he mostly stays at home. But now, fall is coming, and he's starting high school. It looks like a scene from a movie, one of those luxurious schools in California, a large outdoor pool, a football field. The school has a whitewashed facade, resembling a small castle. But despite the new school, and despite it being an all-boys school, Elliot's plan doesn't work out very well.
So basically, he's tiny. He's a very small kid, and you know, so he shows up like, you know, he's 9th grade. I'm gonna guess here, but he's probably like about 5'3", 5'4", weighs about 105 pounds. There's all these massive seniors that are like, you know, 230-pound football players or whatever, and he starts to get picked on.
Elliot feels small. School doesn't start off very well for him. People throw food at him in the cafeteria. He gets teased in the hallways.
He has a propensity to freak out. So, like, you know, I'm sure that, like, while this was going on, you know, he was giving these bullies, like, I'm not saying it's okay to bully a weak kid. I'm just saying I'm sure that he was feeding into all of this, like, daily by either flipping out or just, like, you know, freaking out, like, internally.
In school, Elliot gets bullied. He has outbursts, and his anger only grows and grows. He thought it would get better here now that there were no girls.
Now he's really, really angry because he knows that he's being treated this way because he's weak. And he's right, to be honest with you. Like, he's being treated this way because he's weak, that he's not popular, that he's being singled out for being weird.
He thinks everyone is awful. He becomes lonelier and lonelier, angrier and angrier. And he's also gotten older, so his parents notice more and more where they originally thought the problem would go away with time, but now it's the opposite. It's just getting worse and worse. He's treated worse in school, and he isolates himself more and more, and in desperation, he turns to his father.
He's begging him not to even bring him back to school. He doesn't want to go to school. He's throwing fits at home. You know, don't bring me back, so on and so forth. So they are trying to get him some more mental health treatment at this point.
Elliot is prescribed medication, Xanax and Prozac, pills that are supposed to help with anxiety.
But he doesn't take them regularly. He said that the pills made him too drowsy. So he was like, he didn't like the way he felt on them. So he just decided he was gonna concentrate on positive thinking.
But he still refuses to go back to school. And after a while, his parents arranged for him to attend a school for children facing challenges.
So he convinced his parents to take him out of the Catholic school, and he ended up going to this school where he basically just checked out. Like, he just basically just sat there and didn't talk to anybody until he graduated.
But during this time, when he mostly sits in school and is silent, much more is happening inside. He's about 15 years old, and that's when he starts formulating different thoughts where he feels like he's in a war.
He considers himself at war at this point. With everyone having sex, like, everyone popular is his, like, enemy. He isn't just like, oh, my life sucks and you have it better than me and I'm envious. He's like, I hate you and, like, I'm going to do everything I can to hurt you.
He can't imagine that others are struggling, that others might also be lonely or sad, that everything is not perfect in others' lives either. But Elliot looks around and feels that everyone else is living a perfect life. Everyone else has something that I don't have. And this feeling doesn't make him sad or depressed. It makes him angry.
He also got off on the anger at this point. He started to feel strong when he got angry, as opposed to, like, him being, like, nervous and shy. Like, the anger made him feel, like, powerful.
But Elliot likes this feeling. He feels that at least I have my anger. And now, he starts thinking about changing the world. He thinks he's intelligent, and that he sees the world differently than everyone else. And that maybe it falls on his shoulders to change it.
Elliot Rodger here. I'm just watching the sun descend beyond that hill. There's the sun. That burning ball of flame up there in the universe. The thing that gave us all life.
Elliot films the sunset.
Life. What a phenomenon.
A hazy California light.
Life is so cruel and brutal and horrible. Life is insulting. It's such a malicious joke. And yet, it's so beautiful. I always love watching the sunset. But then again, when I think about all the young couples who get to enjoy this very same sunset together, it makes me feel so sad. I have to do everything alone. My life is so unfair. It's just not fair.
Thing is, like, at this point too, like, he could have found some, like, slightly awkward young, woman that was into playing World of Warcraft. You know, he could have found like some kind of nerdy chick that was like really liked the kind of stuff that he was into, but he didn't. This is typical of like incels in general. Like he didn't want a woman like that. You know, he didn't want to meet like some average nerdy girl.
The girl Elliot wants, whom he also begins to feel entitled to, is the most popular girl in school.
So basically he's sitting there like wanting stuff that he can't have and starting to fantasize about doing really horrible things to the people that had the things that he wanted.
In his online presence, he starts talking about how sex should be banned at this time, that it would solve the problems. And he also starts writing about women being weak creatures. And
his ideology is basically one that aligns completely with incel culture. I think in his case, I don't think he really got that from seeing things online. I think he came up with it like all on his own, but it's the same vibe.
There's a concept here that Brian mentions, incel, which we need to clarify before we continue.
Incel stands for involuntary celibate, which is a pretty broad term, except as it pertains to kind of online culture, it means something very, very specific.
This is Abby Olheiser from the Washington Post describing the concept.
In the incel community in particular, kind of is all bound around this central thesis, which is that the reason that they are celibate against their preference is not because of them or men or kind of societal expectations about what makes a man, but because of women.
The term incel is a group of people. They're all men. It's an online thing for the most part. They support themselves, because of their situation of how they can't have sex.
This group often feels that there's nothing wrong with themselves, but with the world, and especially with women. This is a group of people, an ideology in many ways, who have found a way to find a sense of community in hatred.
They're looking at women, they're denigrating women, they speak violently about women, they'll speak about raping women, they'll speak about killing women. It's not an uncommon thing, for that kind of stuff to be talked about. And also incels, a lot of them, believe that they should be able to have sex with any woman they want to.
In the incel world, there's a concept taken from the movie The Matrix.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Incels are really into like the pill like sort of terminology when they talk about things. So those who take the blue pill, those are people that have an optimistic view on life.
They believe that if you just have a good personality, if you're true to yourself, you'll likely meet a woman you like who also likes you.
Those who take the red pill believe that while your appearance is important, there's other things you can do to be successful with women.
Like working out, looking good, having a nice haircut, so you become comfortable around women, become charming.
Elliot Rodger, they're like black pill. So like when they say black pill, which is something that gets said like all the time, like online forums, it's if a man's good looking, he's always going to do better with a woman than a man with a good personality. If you're unattractive, you're not going to find someone who loves you. You don't have any chance at all. The world's stacked against men who don't have the right genes.
That women will always choose men who have money or look a certain way. The black pill symbolizes that there's nothing you can do to improve your chances. It's over for you. In this world, Elliot now finds himself going to school, but mostly just being there, passing the time, not talking to anyone. At home, he plays World of Warcraft or engages in discussions in various online forums.
He starts to, I alluded to this, but he starts to look at his anger as something that is a really positive thing about him. Like this is like a great strength that he has, he might be like physically small and maybe girls don't like him, but he's smart and he's really pissed off. You know what I mean? And
he feels like nobody understands how strong and smart he is. Nobody comprehends what he's capable of. And he begins to forge a plan on how he will exact revenge on everyone in this world who has wronged him.
He says he has a friend named James that we haven't mentioned before, but in this context, it's kind of interesting because he spends a little bit of time with his friend James and you know, not much, but a little bit here and there. And
Elliot confides in James about how he views the world, that he's angry because others are happy, and in doing so, they mock him. He tells James that he will fight to gain power, that he will seek revenge on all people who have ever hurt him.
You know, he's like a 15, 16-year-old kid, you know, like saying this kind of stuff to his friends. So his friends obviously like, you know, like, what the hell? You know, that's insane. And then
James doesn't feel the same way. He reacts strongly to what Elliot shares here. And this leads Elliot to losing perhaps the only friendship he has, losing yet another person he can talk to.
Again, like he's going in a direction and he's not going to stop until he's like, you know, achieved his goals, which would be, his goals would either be like, you know, at this point, his goals would either be like meeting a beautiful woman that loves him or killing everybody, you know, like basically, like one or the other.
In the next episode,
it's a beautiful campus, lots of trees, lots of picturesque views and spots to hang out as a student.
Elliot is starting college and hopes that everything will turn around.
And then he heard like people having sex in the apartment above him the same night too. And that just like angered him like beyond belief. So like in his mind, it's already like a disaster. Like,
you've listened to the second chapter of The Incel Killer, a podcast series in 5 chapters. My name is Jonathan Rollins. The series is made by Jens Nielsen and Tomas Rajnai. The executive producer is Tove Friman Leffler. And don't forget to follow the podcast so you can keep track of when new episodes are released. This is a production of PodLit.